Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 9th of March of 2024. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. First we're going to talk about the Patriot systems that were destroyed in the vicinity of Pokrovsk. On this video, for example, we can see how the Russians managed to discover the convoy, and as a result of accurate Iskander strike, the entire convoy was destroyed, and according to information we have, 2 Patriot systems were destroyed, the personnel was destroyed, the crew, the let's say engineering machine and support machine. So this is the disaster for the Ukrainians. This is disaster because the Ukrainians were forced to bring Patriot systems as close as possible to the line of combat contact, because the Russians are using Su-30, Su-34, Su-35 massively. The towns like Avdiivka used to be under very heavy fire. Now the Russians are bombing Krasnogorovka, Ocheretina, Pokrovsk, Selidova. All these cities and towns are under very heavy bombing from the Russian side, and these tactics, this new Russian approach allows them to break through defense very fast. And of course this combination of Russian aviation, guided bombs plus infantry can allow the Russians probably to penetrate and to break through this defense belt very soon, and even to reach Dnipro River probably with this year of 2024. So that's why the Ukrainians were forced to redeploy Patriot systems. Of course, when talking about complete air superiority and complete collapse of Ukrainian air defense, it's not enough to destroy 2 Patriot systems, and let's say it's a critical damage. It's a damage, but not critical. So to understand and to receive the answer to the question whether the Russians managed already deal Ukraine's critical damage or just of, let's say, very big damage, we need to increase the number of updates, for example, since, let's say, 11th of February, and to understand and to try to count how many air defense systems the Russians managed to destroy during the previous months. When talking about Kharkiv, we will not discuss because it will be too long then, but just during the previous months the Russians managed to destroy at least 1 IRIS-T system from Kharkiv direction. When talking about Donetsk direction and South Kupink direction, on the 5th of March, so basically 4 days ago, the video was published of how the Russians managed to discover and to destroy the Ukrainian S-300 air defense missile launcher in the vicinity of Liman, the town by the name of Liman. So basically, when talking about this video, now we have at least 2 videos, 2 cases during the previous 4 days of destroyed 3 artillery systems of armed forces of Ukraine. If we move to the south, let's say closer to Avdiivka direction, on the correct me if I'm wrong, on the 25th of February, the Russian sources published another video of destroyed Patriot system. At least the author of this video says that on this video we can see how the Ukrainians were trying to park a Patriot system, but the system was discovered by the Russians, and as a result of another Iskander or Tornado airstrike, that system was destroyed. So now we see that since the 25th of February till the 9th of March, the Russians managed to destroy up to 4 air defense systems of Ukraine on the very short, let's say, line from Seversky Donetsk River to Donetsk Avdiivka. And we are not taking in count the destroyed air systems, air defense systems in Kharkiv area. If we move a little bit to the south west from a regional area in Pokrovsk, we got another S-300 system discovered by the Russians somewhere among the 3 lines in the brushes, and as a result of another Tornado S or Iskander strike, another system was destroyed, and this case took place on the 1st of March. So starting from the 25th of February, the Ukrainians probably lost up to 5 or even more air defense systems just in this small direction. And now the question, probably to answer to the question whether the Russians managed to deal Ukrainian critical damage or not, we have the answer to this question, right? But this is not the end. If we move further to the west, let's say in Dnipro direction, Dnipro is the capital of Dnipro region. This city is located to the northwest of Orekhov. The Russian sources published on the 26th of February how they managed to discover and to destroy the radar and the air defense systems of NASAMS, and this system also was destroyed. So this is probably sixth or seventh case in a row starting of the 20th of February. And this is also not the end. If we move further to Kherson direction, just on Kherson direction we have, and the most important, we are not talking about HIMARS destroyed system. HIMARS of course is not air defense, but this is also very important, very expensive. When talking about Kherson direction, we have another NASAMS system destroyed, not just NASAMS. Also the Russians are saying that they managed to destroy IN MPQ-64F1 radar from the NASAMS system air defense, and this and the NASAMS system itself, they were damaged and destroyed by Lancet strikes. This event took place, this video was published yesterday. And when moving further to the west, closer to Nikolaev, we have another Buk M1 air defense system destroyed by the Russians. Of course, this Buk M1 system is responsible not to fight probably with S-34, Su-34, Su-35 aircrafts, maybe with drones, maybe with Russian Su-25 storm, let's say, aircraft storm vehicles, but also another air defense system. And in the vicinity of Chernobyevka there was another Patriot destroyed, and this video was published on the 22nd of February. On this video we can't make 100% conclusion whether the air Patriot system was destroyed. The only thing we can tell for sure that there is a Patriot track and there was a hangar where the Patriot track was heading to, or maybe left, and after that the Russians made the Iskander strike and that hangar was destroyed. For now we can't tell for sure whether the Patriot system was destroyed or not, but we have some evidence telling us that there are very high chances that the system was destroyed. So once again, just since the 20th of February, very likely the Ukrainians lost up to 10 air defense systems, including several Patriot systems. So, and this is of course critical damage. This is the critical damage, and we can make a real conclusion that the Russians managed to establish complete air defense and air superiority. They managed to clear the sky above Ukraine from Ukraine air defense, and currently there are no barriers for the Russians to continue offensive operation, to reduce everything in front of them to ruins, to capture anything they want. And now the Western countries need to find a solution how to send additional forces, additional air defense system in this direction. Otherwise they will be forced to try to stop the Russians somewhere along Dnipro River. Now we're moving to the line of combat contact. We have additional updates and additional reports from this area. The Russians continue offensive operation. As we discussed in the previous update, currently the main clashes are taking place in the western part, in the central part of Berdichi. The Russians continue bombing and attacking with stealth flamethrower systems. For now, we haven't received any additional information about additional progress, whether the Russians managed to establish complete control or not. The same story about Orlovka. The Russians are pushing and moving on the southern strait. The Russians are pushing on the northern strait. Currently the clashes are very heavy and very bloody, and we can know for sure that yet there is no 100% control. When talking about Toninka, we have additional progress in the central part. We have some updates from different mappers confirming this information, and right before we start making the video we got the report that the Russians managed to establish complete control over the Toninka by taking the farms. But when talking the farms, it's not the entire, let's say, Toninka, it's just the southeast and central and the southwestern parts, and as I understand, the Ukrainians still control the northwestern part of the village. Now we are moving to Krasnogorovka. The Russians continue storming operation. Just this morning we were talking about another Russian attempt to attack the area with significant number of armored vehicles, tanks and personnel carriers. Probably the Russians managed to penetrate the Ukrainian defense belt, and the most important is that Russian attack were taking place on the Ukrainian side of the railways, and the Russians were attacking something like this. For now we don't have the exact results whether the Russians managed to enter this residential area or to capture these trenches, but obviously that was a very dangerous attack. And regarding the Russian attempts to completely collapse the defense of Krasnogorovka, we have additional video of Russian FAB 1500 arrived in the city. So this is exactly what all these huntings for Patriot systems were made for, to establish complete air superiority and to do with Russian aviation whatever they like. to attack the Ukrainian strongholds with FAB 1500, 500, 250 without any resistance and without any barrier from the Ukrainian side. And these tactics, this approach will probably will lead to the situation when we can tell that say that the Ukrainians, the days of Ukraine are numbered. Now we're moving to the southern direction to Novomikhailivka. From this area we got three reports, 3 updates. Right before we start making the video, according to information, the Russian armed forces have begun a powerful artillery barrage in the area of the settlement Novomikhailivka. Massive attacks from the fields, artillery and multi-launch rocket system are being carried out on the Ukrainian targets. So we can say that the final and the last attack has started. Very likely, maybe even while watching this video, you're gonna receive the first reports and the first Russian flags in this, not just in the eastern but in the central and the western part of the stronghold. We can say very likely that the hours of Novomikhailivka are numbered. Also, we have geolocations, how the Russians were conducting these artillery counter duels. As a result of before the Russian attacks, they destroyed few Ukrainian artillery systems, and after that they launched the ground operation. In the vicinity of Konstantinovka, the Russians discovered another tank that was attacking the Russian forces from hidden positions, and as a result of FPV drone strike, that tank was damaged and completely destroyed. When talking about other let's say points of South Donetsk direction, the Russians continue fabbing Ugledar. Additional FABs arrived in this area without any, let's say, resistance and barriers from the Ukrainian side. Once again, this is exactly what the Russians were trying to achieve since the beginning of the special military operation. First, they destroyed most of Ukrainian S-300 systems, then most of IRST and Assam systems, and now the Russians have almost done with Patriot systems, and then is going to just Ukraine left. When talking about Velika Novoselovka direction, the Russians bombed few Ukrainian positions between Staromayorsk and Rovnopol, trying to also with FABs, also no resistance, no barriers from the Ukrainian side, nothing, Ukrainians can nothing to do with this, and of course this is disaster. This is the disaster, and currently we can't tell for sure what the Ukrainians are able to do with this. Rabotino area, we have clashes inside of the village. The Russians were bombing the eastern part, the eastern outskirts. Very likely they are going to, let's say, renew their offensive in this direction, and probably within the next few days we're going to receive more updates from inside central part of the village and from the eastern fields. And also I assume that the Russians probably will force the Ukrainians to fall back from direction as well. The Ukrainians meanwhile are building some fortifications in the vicinity of Orekhov, and probably as soon as they complete the construction of more or less reliable, let's say, fortifications, they will abandon positions in Rabotila by themselves. Kherson direction we have already discussed in the previous video in the morning update. The Ukrainians are building the new road in the vicinity of Nikolaev, trying to increase the logistic possibilities, and the most important, the Ukrainians are trying and planning to start using the Nikolaev port, this area, for, let's say, Black Sea trade, and using this port they will try to send their ships, let's say, to the Black Sea, and then to using Dunay to the Europe, trying to avoid using the blocked border with Poland. And but to start using Nikolaev port, first of all, the Ukrainians need to find a solution how to force the Russians to fall back from the Kinburn speed in this part of Kherson. And once again, according to information we have, the Ukrainian armed forces have intensified aerial and satellite reconnaissance of Russian positions in the Kherson direction. Particular attention is paid to islands, spits and coastal strips. Apparently, the Ukrainian armed forces are planning a landing operation in this direction in order to block the negative news feed from the failed sortie of the 73rd Naval Center of the Special Forces of Ukrainian Armed Forces on February 28th. And another reason is to unblock Odessa Nikolaev ports. This will increase probably the Ukrainian revenue or something like this. Now we are moving back to Bakhmut Artyomov's direction, and once again the same story. The 5th day in a row we are not receiving anything from Ivanovska. Just one Russian source published the updates about further Russian progress without any geolocation proofs or confirmations. Very likely the Ukrainians managed to stabilize the situation in the area, paying significant price with Ukrainian soldiers and losses. And for now, once again, the Russians has less chances forces to complete the battle for Ivanovska fast and successful until they handle with this hill that Ukrainians use to control the rest of Ivanovska. Until there are Ukrainian positions there, the Russians has less chances to conduct and to finish the battle for Ivanovska fast, successful and bloodless. Chasiv Yar, no updates, just a regular aviation artillery bombing. The Russians have renewed their offensive operation to the south of Siversk. We have artillery preparation along the railways, and this is not the first video in a row from the direction. The Russians started bombing the territory a few days ago. Now they continue bombing this area with multi-launch rocket systems, artillery forces, so very likely within the next few days the Russians will make another attempt to collapse Ukrainian defense belt on the line Vyimka, Ivanodarivka and Sporne. Furthermore, the Russians have some certain goals and some certain interest in taking control over the village by the name of Razdolovka. This area was also under very heavy Russian fire during the previous 24 hours. When moving to Terny, no updates, no changes. The video we discussed in the previous update, we have adjusted the map based on this FPV drone attack of the Russian forces on the Russian forces. So nothing special, just some corrections on map. Still no updates from the Terny village itself. Kupiansk north direction, against nothing happened. Just few reports and attempts from the Russian attack, and once again the mappers updated their maps. Once again the Russians entered the northern part of Sinkovka, probably with the purpose to abandon their positions in a day or two. We see a real intensifying of actions along the line of contact along the borderlands. Additional aviation bombs, artillery strikes against the Ukrainian positions, more Lancet and FPV drone strikes. And you know that there is a difference between borderlands, let's say a year ago, half a year ago, and now. A year ago and a half year ago, the Russians were using just sabotage groups, maybe some artillery strikes, and that's it. And when talking about the current situation on the borderlands, the Russians are using sabotage group, aviation, FAPs, Lancet. The Russians use FPV drones, stealth flamethrower systems. The Russians use all types of weapons they have to attack the Ukrainian positions along the border, which means and confirms that borderlands is not just some area where the Russians try to keep some buffer and some neutral position. Borderlands is currently a separate tactical position, let's say as Avdiivka direction, as Zaporozhye direction, as Kherson direction. The Russians have all types of weapons they need in this area to start a full-scale offensive operation with the purpose to completely break through the Ukrainian defense belt and to capture as much as possible. We have additional reports from Kiev itself. For example, we got updates that the United States of America, to be more precise, are planning to, let's say, the Republicans start making the new law for loan or credit for Ukraine. Currently, we don't know for sure what is this about, but obviously very soon we're going to receive more details. Republicans are preparing a project to help Ukraine on the loan. Previously, conservatives in the House of Representatives rejected a multi-billion-dollar aid package. They said they will not support the continuous sending of US taxpayer dollars without a long-term plan to win the war. But now they start doing this, but obviously it's going to take a lot of time until they're going to make the final decision. Let's say Western troops in Ukraine are not something unthinkable, Polish foreign minister. So Western countries continue preparing their population in the Western European society that sooner or later they will send their forces and troops to the western part or to Ukraine at all. The French soldiers trained for the killing fields of Europe. France is still preparing for a full-scale war with Russia. Maybe it's just the acts to slow down the Russians, but maybe this is true. Anyway, I can't tell for sure whether the French soldiers are ready to fight with the Russians, but I know for sure that the Russians are ready and are waiting for it. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.